Welcome to the shadows, where fear comes to life. If you crave chilling stories, bone-rattling horror news, and the twisted tales that haunt your dreams, you've found your dark corner of YouTube. This is Horror Locker, your guide through the macabre, the mysterious, and the downright terrifying. So light a candle, lock the doors, and let's dive into the darkness together. The air was warm that Sunday evening in late May, the kind of soft, golden light that made Telford feel like a postcard, quiet, tucked between fields and forest, far from anything that could go wrong. In the Williams household, everything felt normal. Georgia was upstairs, packing a small bag. She told her parents she was heading out for a while, meeting a friend for a quick photo project. Just a casual shoot, she said. Nothing to worry about. She smiled as she came downstairs. That smile, wide, confident, just a little mischievous, was the kind that lit up rooms and calmed nerves. Her father, Steve, gave her a nod. Lynette, her mother, reminded her not to be out too late. Georgia reassured them both. Then she walked out the door. 17 years old, head girl at her school. A dedicated air cadet with big dreams. Georgia wasn't just another teenager. She stood out, sharp-witted, kind, and fiercely driven. Her teachers adored her. Her friends admired her. At AFC Telford United, where she volunteered, she was known for showing up early and staying late, always offering help with a laugh and a sense of purpose. But none of that made her invincible. That night, the house slowly fell into its usual rhythm. Dishes in the sink, a quiet television, lights going off one by one. But when midnight came and went, something shifted. Steve, a police officer, tried not to panic. Georgia had stayed out late before. Maybe she'd crashed at a friend's. Maybe she forgot to text. But by morning, the quiet had turned to dread. Georgia hadn't come home. Her phone was off. None of her closest friends had seen her. That's when the fear took hold. The kind that creeps in slowly at first, then suddenly floods every thought. Something was wrong. Deeply, horribly wrong. What nobody knew yet was that Georgia hadn't gone to just any friend's house that night. She had gone to see Jamie Reynolds, and she would never come home again. Morning sunlight crept through the curtains of the Williams family home, but there was no peace in it. Georgia's bedroom door was still closed, her bed untouched. Her parents had waited through the night, first with calm concern, then with quiet pacing, then with mounting panic. Georgia was responsible. She didn't disappear. She didn't ignore calls or let people worry without reason. By mid-morning, Steve picked up the phone, not as a father, but as a police officer. He reported his own daughter missing. The news moved quickly. Within hours, missing person alerts had gone out. Uniformed officers visited her school, her friends' houses, the nearby parks and town centers. Posters bearing her face, soft eyes, strawberry blonde hair, a bright smile, began appearing in windows, pinned to trees, shared on Facebook. The town of Telford started holding its breath. Officers canvassed streets. They asked questions. Did anyone see Georgia that night? Was she walking? Did she meet someone in a car? Some said they saw her around 7:30 p.m. near Wellington. Others weren't sure. The trail was thin. Georgia's phone was off. Her social media had gone silent. And that wasn't like her. By day 2, it wasn't just local officers looking. Specialist search teams were brought in. Police dogs combed woodlands. Drones scanned open spaces. The word urgent started showing up in press briefings. Helicopters hovered above the wreck-in, looking for anything, a piece of clothing, a phone, any clue. Volunteers showed up too, dozens at first, then hundreds. Friends, neighbors, strangers. Some brought torches. Others brought flasks of tea and asked how they could help. AFC Telford opened its doors to support the search. People posted updates, organized routes, set up coordination groups online. Georgia wasn't just missing. Steve stayed composed, the way police officers are trained to be, but his voice was tight. Lynette tried to hold on to hope. Every hour that passed, though, chipped away at it. On the third day, the tone changed. Police began describing her disappearance as unexplained and concerning. They confirmed they were treating it as a possible abduction. Behind closed doors, the major investigation unit was already digging deeper. Still, the official statements were careful. No one wanted to jump to conclusions. Georgia might still come home. She had to come home. Then, quietly, detectives made an arrest. A 22-year-old man from Wellington had been the last person confirmed to have seen her. His name was Jamie Reynolds. He wasn't well known. Not really, just a quiet guy, a former schoolmate. A name that hadn't raised alarm until now. Police wouldn't say much more, only that Reynolds had been taken into custody in Glasgow, Scotland, more than 250 miles from Telford, and that the investigation was continuing. Outside the Williams home, silence settled in. Journalists gathered behind police tape. Cameras waited. Reporters spoke in hushed tones. Inside, a family waited for news, but none came. Not yet. Jamie Reynolds wasn't a name that made headlines, not until now. He was 22 years old, lived in Wellington, not far from the Williams family. To most, he was just quiet, kept to himself, spent a lot of time online, the kind of person you might pass in the street and not remember afterward. But for those who knew him in school, there was something different about Jamie. Not outwardly strange, just distant, detached. He rarely joined in, didn't cause trouble, didn't make friends easily. He hovered at the edges of things. Some of George's friends remembered he'd once had a crush on her, back in school. It wasn't anything serious. Nothing ever came of it. Georgia had always been kind to people, polite, friendly. Maybe that's why she agreed to help him that Sunday evening. Jamie told her he had a photography idea, something creative. He said he needed a model. Georgia, ever helpful, said yes. Now, 3 days later, he was under arrest, picked up in Glasgow, hours from home, alone, carrying a laptop and phone. Detectives had started to dig into his background. What they found didn't sit right. There'd been an incident in 2008. Jamie was just a teenager. He'd lured a girl to his home and then tried to strangle her. She escaped. He was spoken to by police. He got counseling. The case was quietly closed. Nothing stuck. Later, in 2011, he was caught writing disturbing stories online. Violent, obsessive, full of strange, controlling fantasies. Teachers flagged it. Police were informed. But still, no formal action. No criminal record. Just more counseling. Another quiet warning. Behind closed doors, Jamie's world had grown darker. Online, he spent hours in corners of the internet most people would never go. He was collecting images, writing scripts, imagining scenes that no one else saw. No one wanted to see. But to the outside world, he was just quiet Jamie, the kid who stayed in his room. A bit awkward, maybe, but harmless. That illusion was beginning to crack. Back in Telford, detectives searched his home. They took computers, hard drives, notebooks. They went through everything. But even as they built their case, they said little to the press. Georgia was still missing, and officially, Jamie Reynolds was still just a person of interest. Her family clung to hope. Maybe he knew something. Maybe she was still out there. But deep down, the silence was starting to speak. The search was now in its 5th day. Georgia's face was everywhere, on lampposts, news broadcasts, Twitter timelines. The hashtag Find Georgia Williams was spreading far beyond Telford. People who'd never heard her name just a week earlier now shared her smile like she was family. But behind the scenes, the tone had shifted. At the West Mercia Police Headquarters, officers gathered around crime scene photos, maps, digital evidence, and the name at the center of it all, the name that kept circling back, was Jamie Reynolds. Forensic technicians had begun recovering files. At first, there was nothing out of the ordinary. Old photos, school assignments, music downloads, but buried beneath it all, encrypted, hidden, disguised, was something else entirely. Detectives didn't release the details. Not yet. But what they found changed everything. No one said it out loud at first, not officially, but the air changed. The hope began to fade. George's parents were informed quietly. The public wasn't told, not yet, but a press conference was scheduled. More officers were brought in. Lines of communication were suddenly locked down. Then came the next blow. On May 31st, 5 days after Georgia vanished, police received a call from North Wales. A body had been found in remote woodland near the Nangarth Pass between Wrexham and Ruthin. A young woman. No identification. No phone. The discovery made headlines instantly. In Telford, people held their breath. They wanted to believe it wasn't her. It couldn't be. But in their hearts, they already knew. Back at the Williams home, Steve and Lynette sat surrounded by family. They didn't need to be told. When the knock came at the door, the silence that followed said everything. The search for Georgia Williams was over. But the story, the full story, had only just begun. The confirmation came late on May 31st, 2013. The body found in the North Wales woodland was that of 17-year-old Georgia Williams. Her family was informed first. Then, carefully, the police told the public. The search was over, but the real investigation, the full understanding of what had happened, was only just beginning. Jamie Reynolds had already been arrested. Now detectives began laying out the pieces of a puzzle that was darker, more chilling, and more deliberate than anyone had imagined. What they uncovered was not a crime of passion or a moment of madness. It was something else entirely. It was planned, meticulously, coldly, for years. Jamie Reynolds had been obsessed with control. He built fantasies in his head, violent ones, where he was the one in power and women were not people, but props. Things to be bent, posed, dominated. On his computer, police found over 16,000 images and videos. Some downloaded. Many more were altered, digitally manipulated to place real women in disturbing, submissive positions. There were folders, tags, even scripts, all written by Jamie. But this wasn't just fantasy. There was evidence that Reynolds had been working toward this moment, this event, for years. Georgia wasn't his first target. In 2008, at just 17, he lured another teenage girl to his home. He told her it was for a photography project. Once inside, he tried to strangle her with a ligature attached to his loft hatch, the exact same method he would later use on Georgia. That girl escaped. Police were called. He was given counseling. No criminal charges were filed. There were opportunities to intervene. There were warnings. And yet, year after year, Jamie Reynolds stayed under the radar. Jamie messaged Georgia a few days before. He had an idea for a levitation photography project. He said it would be artistic, tasteful, just an illusion. Could she help? Georgia, ever generous, agreed. She arrived at his home around 7:30 p.m. on Sunday, May 26th. Jamie had prepared everything in advance, a ligature, a camera on a timer, props to stage a scene. This wasn't spontaneous. It wasn't impulsive. It was rehearsed. He attacked her almost immediately, strangled her using the loft hatch rope, just as he'd done in his failed 2008 attempt. She didn't stand a chance. After she was dead, Jamie took photographs, multiple, methodical. The camera was set on a timer to capture the aftermath. He posed her body, changed angles, clicked again and again. Then he cleaned up. He placed her body in the back of his car. Reynolds didn't panic. He didn't flee immediately. He spent time on his computer, bought cleaning products. He even went out and bought a pack of condoms, despite having already committed the murder, indicating perhaps the depths of his warped fantasies and the total disconnection from reality. Eventually, he drove north. He stopped at hotels, slept, ate, all with George's body in the back of the car. It wasn't until he reached Scotland, over 250 miles away, that police caught up with him. They tracked his phone, reviewed camera footage, and matched his vehicle on AMPR, automatic number plate recognition. He was arrested in a Premier Inn in Glasgow. At first, he said nothing, but his devices spoke volumes. On December 2nd, 2013, Jamie Reynolds pleaded guilty to the murder of Georgia Williams. He showed no emotion in court, just sat there, silent, pale, mechanical. The judge didn't hold back. This wasn't just murder, he said. It was a sadistic killing. A crime that was sexually motivated, premeditated, and executed with chilling precision. The court heard about Reynolds' internet history, the violent fantasies, the earlier attack in 2008, the repeated chances to stop him that had all been missed. The judge described Reynolds as an exceptionally dangerous individual, someone who would kill again if ever given the chance. And so, Jamie Reynolds was handed a whole life order. No possibility of parole, no release, no second chance. He would die in prison. Georgia's parents sat in court for every moment. Steve, a police officer, heard in graphic detail how his daughter had been betrayed, tortured, and discarded. Lynette sat beside him, stoic but shattered. Outside the courtroom, their words cut through the silence. We want people to remember Georgia for how she lived, not how she died. They later wrote a book, Our Georgia, to honor her memory and to demand answers. Why wasn't Jamie Reynolds stopped sooner? How many red flags had to be ignored before someone listened? In the years since, the Georgia Williams Trust was set up, a youth charity that supports young people to achieve their goals in sports, adventure, and community work. It's everything Georgia stood for. And behind that legacy, there's a quiet promise that Georgia Williams will never just be another victim. She was a daughter, a leader, a friend, a bright light, extinguished far too soon. If you made it this far, congratulations. You've survived for now. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell, because in the world of horror, you never know what's lurking next. Got a creepy story, a twisted theory, or a horror film you think we should unearth? Drop it in the comments. I'll be watching. Until next time, stay curious, stay cautious, and whatever you do, don't look behind you.